Chris will be talking about his experience of joining a club, in particular the Risborough District Model Railway Club. If you do want to ask questions, then please either use the chat facility, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen, or put your hand up, and then I will ask you to unmute and ask a question. In the meantime, off you go, Chris.
Thank you, James. First things first, just a quick check you can see the opening slide on the screen.
It's fine here.
And a thumbs up that the audio is coming through okay.
Yep, absolutely fine here.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name's Chris Morrill. I offered to put together a short presentation on what I've got from being a member of Risborough District Model Railway Club since I returned to the hobby about 6 years ago now. It's an entirely personal perspective. It does not represent the policy of the club, but I think it draws on a lot of the positives that I've gained in my 6 years of membership. So I'm going to speak for about 20 minutes. As James said, if you have a pressing question, then please feel free to type it into the chat on the side or raise your hand, and we'll either pause proceedings and answer it then, or park it till the end of the session where we've got a bit of time for discussion. So here we go, that's me, and this is roughly what I'm going to look to cover in the next 20 minutes. So it's a little look back at where I was as a modeler and railway enthusiast, and a consideration at that time of what I wanted to do and why perhaps I wanted to do it, but then focusing in particular on what the club was able to offer through its membership, and what I've taken advantage of by being a member of the club, and also a bit of a forward look as to what kind of things I may wish to go on to do again under the banner of the Risborough Club. So where was I? Dormant, I would describe it. Some social media aficionados may use the term lurking. I thought that was probably a bit strong at the time, but basically in my teenage years, I was quite an active member with Hull Miniature Railway Society, and we had a fairly large exhibition, good local support, very strong membership, lots of layouts being built centrally as a club, quite a few members producing layouts to go on the exhibition circuit, and as someone who was always willing to operate, construct, lift heavy things, drive trucks, and I used to really enjoy that. It was a really good crack getting out and about on the scene, and took a lot of inspiration from that. At that time, I would say my modelling skills were pretty much taking ready to run stuff out the box, and applying some detail using a lot of the specialist provision that was available at the time. So on the screen, there's a couple of examples there. I used to, because I was quite cheap, I used to hoover up sort of cast-offs from other members where they'd started something and given off, and think, oh, I'll use that, I'll turn that into something good one day. So if anyone remembers it, I think that's an MTK kit of a Class 108 DMU on the top left. This was before Bachmann went anywhere near them, and pretty much that was your only option. So I thought, oh, I'll take that, and I'll take it apart, give it a good scrub down, and turn it into something. And that got parked in the really good ideas box, as did the plentiful Lima Class 33s, which were subjected to Craftsman and A1 models detail improvements. One of them I even had a crack at turning into an EM motor. Again, got so far and then parked them in the box. And I suppose the reason why they ended up being parked was a fairly familiar story to most people, and I think you read about it in the introduction to articles written by personal modelers. When they've been building their layouts, life gets in the way, gets busy, time's short, there's pressure on your time with work, with families, with travel, with any other range of distractions which keeps you from your true purpose in life, which is crafting beautiful models of the railway scene around you. Anyway, I came to a point in 2015, I'd been overseas with work and returned to the area of Princess Risborough, and basically took the plunge, having been to RiseX on a couple of occasions beforehand, but just on a casual basis. Said, well, if I don't do something now, when will I ever do it? Will I just keep pushing it further and further to the right, and will I ever get involved again? So took the plunge and approached the club with a view to just getting back into modelling. So what was the appeal of the club at the time? Well, it was very local for me. It was a very short car drive. I could even have got there on the bus had I been doing my bit for the planet, but I used to take a short drive there on a Friday. It was very accessible because the community centre, it's very open, very friendly. And on my first visit, I was given a really good overview of what goes on. The regularity as well. It was on a weekly basis, every Friday, just come for a couple of hours, spend time in a room with like-minded souls. And you didn't need a lot of stuff. So whatever you were into at the time, all you needed to bring was that project and some of the tools which you needed to progress it. So that's what it was, almost a drop in. It was a hobby you could keep in a box for most of the week without spreading across the dining room table, and just pick up on a Friday night and go and enjoy 2 or 3 hours in good company. So on getting back into it, I decided to dig out all the junk that I'd carted around from house to house and start having a go at working through some of those projects I thought I'd always get round to. So as was the way, out comes the old Lima box, an old Class 37 I had, some more detailing components available. So I thought, well, I'll dig that out and have a go at fixing the widely held incorrectly proportioned windows. There are a host of other things wrong with Lima compared to the original Hornby one, compared to some of the more modern offerings, and they keep on emerging. Every new version of a locomotive now seems to be better than the last one. It's almost like the DAS washing powder. Last year's whites were so not white, and this year's whites are so much better. So my perspective is it doesn't really matter, because what I was doing, I was getting back into the hobby, and I was getting back into using skills that had been dormant for a good few years. So I think the point I really want to stress as I go through here is, in the room, in the modelling room on a Friday night, there is so much experience to draw on. For a new member, it's an absolute treasure chest of, yeah, we've tried it that way and it worked really well, and we tried it this way and that works really well. And there is no right or wrong answer to most questions you pose. You can ask any number of people in the room and they will all have a slightly different take on how to do it. And my point in this presentation is, one of those will make sense to you. One of those will connect with you, and one of you will allow you to build your own experience and go through this development journey. This is the still that's on the club's website, and this was the scene that I walked into when I approached the club in 2015. So there are about 24 members in the room, all with their own workspaces, all working on their own projects, some working on projects for one of the club layouts, a lot of people just chipping away at their own stuff. And that is the really big appeal, because it's really social, and you can put your own tools down, have a wander around, have a nosy over people's shoulders, and it really makes the difference to see someone attempting or mastering something you'd often thought wasn't possible, or was certainly beyond your reach, and thinking, oh, hang on, that doesn't look so unapproachable. And this is where those inspirational moments come from. And you're thinking, well, I was just going to stick with this as a project, but actually, having seen it done, would you be able to show us how to do some of that? And the answer is generally yes. And that's been a really strong part of my retaining my membership there, is because when you hit rough water, when you get into a spot of bother with a modelling project, there's generally someone there who can help you unpick it. And I'd say that's priceless. So there are new skills to try. I wanted to try new things. As I said before, that the hobby had moved on from like the late 80s when I was doing the exhibitions and the detailing stuff. There is a wealth of manufactured goods, wealth of suppliers, you name it. It's pretty much achievable. Some of the sessions in elsewhere on the website that point to computer assisted design, 3D printing, laser etching, all these things have become such powerful aids for modeling. So it's almost, where do you start? There's so much to try. There's quite a focus in 4mm scale at the club on fine scale scheme, not my natural bedfellow from the late 80s, but having seen Aylesbury High Street and having seen Aylesbury Town and the standard of modelling there, it was just incredible to me. So I think what helped make the connection was the people who were in the room with me, the members, were the ones that were producing it or converting it for exhibition purposes in the case of High Street. So take the plunge. Put aside your personal preference for blue noisy things and say, oh, can I get involved in that? And the answer was a very definite yes. And how the club has approached this issue of, well, it's not really an issue. It's more about harnessing potential of its membership, was the offer of someone with a level of expertise in a particular area saying, well, I'll run a workshop on this kind of thing. And that is what opened the door for me. And the first workshop I went to took the plunge, I think, February 2016, was a track building workshop. Yay. This is very definitely something new for me. I've very much been, set track or flexi track out the box. This is all, this works for me. All right, I'll live with being tied to the geometry. But having a go at building track in a workshop format with that roving support, walking around, seeing how you're doing, making sure you're understanding, checking the output of the work, that it is actually going to function as a piece of track, was priceless. It made all the difference. It took me from a very rusty scholar to a now not quite so rusty scholar. I wouldn't claim to be any kind of master of soldering, but I'm now functional. So I can be trusted with the soldering iron on my own, not to A, burn myself, B, burn the model, or C, burn the clubhouse in which I'm building it. And that's a real skill lift for me. The use of track gauges. What were track gauges? How do you use them? How do you use them properly to set curves? All this kind of information, all this was within the experience of the club membership, and it's priceless. If you're trying to do it on your own, it can seem such an uphill struggle that I would say the potential for advancement by joining the club and taking part in these sessions, which are all at no cost, is enormous. Come in, give it a go. So I've actually plucked from the archive of photos my own fair hands there, involved with my very old but still reliable Antex soldering iron, working away on a template, copper clad sleepers, soldered construction, and you've got two P4 gauges there as try and get the rails in the right place. This was a really useful enterprise. It built a lot of points for one of the club layouts, but it also gave a number of members the opportunity to develop a skill which has stuck with me. And on the right of the screen are two of those points in position in the fiddle yard. Not sure I could lay claim to having built those, but I was part of the enterprise. There are a number of the points I stuck together on there, and they do actually allow the passage of P4 gauged locomotives and rolling stock. Step change, I would say, in my modelling aspirations. Never been anywhere near fine scale before, but suddenly, oh, well, I built one. Can I build another one? Yes, can build another one, and just gradually increasing the complexity of the point work all the time. Skills are honing, the soldering's getting better. You kind of get your eye in for how the lay of the track needs to be. Really good. I now spend more time when I'm riding on railways actually looking at track work than I do looking at the other rolling stock. That's just a personal issue for me, I would say, though. And next step from there was going on to the scenic side and the hand building of points there, similar in principles, but just using different components. So we're actually using timber sleepers with very fine and very easy to lose, and they will fly a long way if they go under their own pressure. Very fine, small plastic components, molded components building together. And whilst that's me on the left-hand side doing a bit of cleaning ahead of a test run, the slip on the right-hand side was a bit of a cause célèbre for me, because it initially went in the other way around, and I was foolish enough to take on the job of reversing it in situ, which sounded quite easy when I started. Yeah, it was a bit of a labour of love in the end, but we got there, and it now runs and is in place and awaiting our return to Aylesbury Town, the layout. So what else have I been doing whilst I've been in there? Got quite involved underneath the layout, actually wiring the thing up, getting to understand DCC buses and point controls, and how to join baseboards together in a reliable and I was going to say foolproof way. We have some very fine fools, and we have tested it, and those with great strength can still connect the electrical joiners the wrong way around. But other than that, it's good. Getting the idea of what DCC has become. My only exposure to that kind of technology was the 01 stuff that Hornby churned out in the 80s. My goodness, that has come a long way. And again, a wealth of expertise in the club. They're ready to help. The other workshop that I particularly enjoyed was Mick Bonwick's weathering workshop. So there was a small cost for that, just to cover some of Mick's expenses, but very low. And you got a full day working on techniques and procedures and what kind of materials work. And yeah, absolute cracker of a day. We were invited to select a prototype, bring a model in, and just have a go practice. So I nicked a wagon off my son and found a photo of the prototype, took it in and had a go. And yeah, really useful techniques developed. And these are all things that are in the bank. They're all parked away, ready for future use. So I've got this mental junk box now of techniques which I've started. I've got the basics of, and I just need to keep doing to hone. I think the last project I'll draw your attention to was getting to the idea of putting together some kind of fine scale kit. So previously, if it wasn't polystyrene cement and it came out on an Airfix box, I thought, oh no, that's way beyond me. But some of the skills I developed in track construction were entirely transferable to this. So I trekked myself to a Penbits kit, which is for sprung bogies for a diesel loco. I found a Bachmann Class 24 on eBay, which was quite cheap because someone had already cut off the couplings and dropped in a P4 wheel set. So there we go. Let's have a crack at that. It took me about 2 years to get round to it, and it was actually the start of lockdown when I thought, right, I'll get it out. Now I've got the time. Let's lay it out and have a go. So there we go. That was my setup. Obviously, because we couldn't use the club anymore, I had to dominate one end of the dining room table. So the big mat out, iPad with the instructions on, obligatory mug of tea, everything else around me, and off we go. And step by step, pick it up. A couple of weeks work, just picking it up, an hour or so at a time when the light was good. The idea of folding, prepping, soldering, testing, filing, adjusting, all these skills came in. Some very good instructions with that kit. And what I ended up with was a converted compensated Class 24, which runs very smoothly. And I'm really looking forward to the day that we can get back into the club and I can put it to work on Aylesbury Town again. The journey's not stopped though. There is plenty more to do there. I've been focused quite a bit on the permanent way and some of the rolling stock. Some of the stuff the guys are doing in the scenic side it's mind-boggling. It's so good. That's an area I've got to get into, I've got to find the time to get into it because it completes our interpretation of what the historical prototype was. Really good. There have been workshops, and I'm sure there will be future workshops on resin molding, computer assisted design, the laser cutting and the 3D printing. These are all things which I think are going to aid the growth of our hobby because they just bring so much more into the scope of what is possible, either individually or as part of a group enterprise, or indeed through commercial manufacture, and getting our heads around that technology. It's not to replace existing skills, but rather it adds to them and strengthens them and builds these skills. So I think that was me just over 20 minutes with what hopefully seemed like a fairly convincing pitch for joining the club, and certainly a retrospective look at what I've achieved and got involved in over the last 6 years. So I think my duties as co-host are done, and I'm going to hand back to James to chair any discussion, and I'm happy to take any questions or have spears thrown at me about anything I've just said.
Thank you very much, Chris. A very interesting view from a relatively, 6 years, relatively new member of the club. And I can very much sympathise with that. My reasons for joining the club were slightly different. I wanted to build a layout. I'd started a number of layouts and just realised that I was never ever going to be able to do it on my own. It's very difficult to keep the enthusiasm going, but by sharing things with others, as you say, like-minded individuals, you've got that constant drive. You go to the club, you see what other people are doing, you come back home, it lifts you, it gives you that enthusiasm to get stuck into things and achieve something that's always been an aim. So can I ask if we got any questions or any points that other people here would like to ask Chris? All quiet.
Well, I would add to Chris's view on this in that I can distinctly remember before I joined the club, and I've got my big project going. I haven't got time to join a club. I've got to get on with my project. I've got to do it. And in fact, it was Mick who persuaded me to join, and the benefit has been enormous, both in terms of being able to contribute to other people's projects and other things that you learn, but actually people have contributed to my project as well, both in hard terms of hands-on stuff, but also access to other skills, access to other research. So all sorts of things I've found that my club mates have found for me once they know what project you're doing. So it's very much a win-win. So yes, I would really commend being a member of a club.
Yep. And
I'm glad to hear from Chris that the efforts that have been put into things like workshops and so on are well received. I mean, I knew they were, but it is gratifying to know that it's helped move you on.
Yep.
Oh,
Chris, do you want to stop screen sharing?
yeah.
We can just return to a group. Do we have other points of view from other members of the club, and how I don't think it's probably not fair to compare us against a different club.
Well, it's not. And I probably, well, I don't know if I'm the newest member here. Might be. I don't know. I don't know how long I've been. Years seem to have passed randomly.
Time passes quickly, doesn't it, Roger?
It does, yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I suppose. Yeah. But I did used to belong to Wickham, and it is just interesting that they're different. And I'm certainly not making any judgment one way or the other, but it is a very different type of club in that it is almost solely built around layouts. Just layouts. Everybody works on it. If you don't work on a layout, you don't do anything. I mean, essentially, a club like Wickham. And it was interesting to listen to Hillingdon this morning, where again, essentially, their club is built around layouts. Now we obviously do layouts as well, but as Chris said, not everybody does that. You do get a lot of people proportionally in our club who sit and do their own thing, but in company with others, getting advice from others, giving advice to others, which is not, in my experience, as that common.
Yeah, I'd echo that. So Hull was how you described Wickham, Roger, in that there was a strong, I think it was a 3-rail O gauge section, and there's a little N gauge section, but the bulk of it was double O around the sides, and it was all, we're all working on this layout or that layout. I think what they used to, so the running nights were pretty much the weekly event on a Thursday, and then they'd have another night which was for working on the layouts, with a smaller crowd, but nothing like the just make your own workspace and get on with your own projects. A lot of people just modelled away from the place and then brought in the fruits of their labours. It worked. There's a strong membership. Really good show once a year. Although I think that's died off a bit of late. But you put me on any sales stand, and I will sell the pitch of come in, do what you want to do, draw on the experience, develop, get better.
Yeah, that is something I've heard about other clubs, that they frequently are either working or operating a layout or drinking cups of tea.
Yeah.
And the sort of, the middle ground of sitting and doing your own thing doesn't seem to be an aspect, whereas the Risborough Club is very much the other way around.
Yeah.
It's very much a modelling club, a real modelling club, where you're not expected to model. If you want to stand around, watch other people, drink a cup of tea, it's fine. We're not prescriptive. You come down, you pay your membership, do what you like.
Yeah, I think the other thing that goes with that is I would agree with Chris absolutely. I think the workshopy things that I've attended, and the weathering course, Paul's resin casting one, and things like that. And I know it's difficult, but the more of those we do, I think the better. And I think there is also a danger, is that you do them and you go, we've done that now. 5 years down the road, which passes at a blink of an eye. You've got new members, you've got people that weren't interested then but might be interested now. So some of those things, I think, can be repeated. Not every year, but 5 years time, then why not? Because they kind of don't count so much by then, because the membership's changed.
Just to say to that one or two non-club members listening into this, that certainly the resin casting workshop, for example, is up on the show page. You can go and have a look at that. And there are a number of others that are there that we've run over time. So they are accessible to others as well at the moment.
But clubs are a good thing.
Yes, they are. They probably don't suit everybody, but I think if you want to enjoy your hobby with like-minded people, they're a great way of doing it. Okay, do we have any questions from other people here? You're welcome to mute if you wish, or shall we close the session? You happy to close the session, Chris?
Very good. Thank you for your attention, and for not blowing raspberries down the microphone at me.
Well done, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Well done, Chris.
Well done, Chris.
Very much
Cheers.
enjoyed it.
Very good.
Thank you. Goodbye all.
Thanks, Chris. Well done.
Right.